Okay, let's get this out of the way. I do think if the game was presented as just Survive rather than Metal Gear Survive, people would have been a bit more interested in the title and maybe give it more of a proper chance, because they're just kind of seeing it as, oh, it's just using the engine from Metal Gear Solid 5, but it isn't part of that Metal Gear series. And even as I've played this game a bunch, I don't really see much of a relation to that franchise, and I feel like Konami just used this for brand recognition. I do not agree nor defend the monetization practices in this game. Yes, the game has microtransactions, and I haven't felt the pull of them as I've played the game and kept getting so many resources. You get plenty through single player, and you especially get a lot through co-op play. The game does feature a more controversial topic with its additional character slots. You start the game with one, and then you must purchase additional slots, which many media outlets are saying that you have to use real-world money to obtain these. That's only half true. As you log into the game, you'll earn these login bonuses each day, which is a form of in-game currency, and this can be used to then buy those character slots. So you do earn currency at a slow rate, and you'll eventually be able to purchase an additional character slot if you want to. The thing is, if you're enjoying the game, you'll eventually play the game naturally and earn these just by playing the game. If you don't like the game, more character slots, whether they are available or you have to unlock them, won't matter to you because you're not playing the game, you're not enjoying the game. I'm not defending this aspect of the game. My intent is to paint a fuller picture than what was initially stated. Yes, I do think it is dumb that they lock out character slots, and it should have just been, here are all the character slots, but in this situation, they can be earned. Lastly, before we get into defending Survive, the game has a persistent online connection that really does not feel like it's needed. This game is primarily a single-player focused game with a separate co-op component. If a second player could join you in the campaign, I could understand having the online connection while still disagreeing with having it. But at the same time here, I kind of hope that they patch this out in the future because it's primarily a single-player experience. While playing about 17 hours of the game, I noticed that Metal Gear Survive focuses on two things: a risk-reward way of exploring and preparation. The game continually asks you to think about your choices. For example, I was exploring the dust area, I found a vehicle that can help me traverse the environment easier and faster. You could also use your Jeep as a battering ram and instantly kill many of the enemies in the area. The trade-off is that it causes damage to your vehicle and will eventually blow up. Many of these decisions are asked of the player as you play the game. Should I continue venturing into dusk and collect more supplies and loot? Do I have enough oxygen to explore and then return back to my base? This plays into the systems you must monitor as you play. Since this is a survival game, you have many meters to monitor as you play the game. You'll need to maintain your food, water, oxygen levels while you're in the dust area, and your weight. Food can be acquired through the wildlife and the plants in the environment. After a few missions, you'll be able to start farming at your own base so that you can then have a reliable source of food. Hunted animals must be cooked to be eaten without a chance of having your character fall ill from raw meat. You can only cook at your main base, so you have to decide if you really need the food right away and take that risk of eating raw meat, or can you make it back to your base so that you can cook it. This also factors into the water supply. You can acquire water in the environment, but at many times it's dirty and it needs to be filtered. As you complete the main missions, you'll gain access to the filter for dirty water, along with the ability to make your own water sources. Since you can fall ill from the dirty water and spoiled food can hurt your character, this all kind of plays into your health and stamina mechanics. While ill, it limits your max levels for food and water, while this also impedes your max health and your health regeneration, along with your stamina and then your stamina regeneration. Illness will also cause you to throw up at random times, and you don't really know when they're going to happen. This can be very serious during combat, as you'll be in the middle of a fight or running to safety and your character will stop to throw up. Why am I talking about all this? All of this plays into the risk-reward, and essentially the game asks you to consider everything. You're taught this by playing the game and exploring the systems. Once you learn what the game tries to teach you, you'll begin to be better at it and then thus survive. The game provides you with the options and the opportunity to learn these systems, and it's up to you, the player, to then figure out how to go about it. This all creates a great sense of satisfaction as you start at level 1 and then you level up, but also you're also learning how the game operates. The game teaches you to consider many things and be prepared as possible. This is very satisfying in the progression department. A decent example of this is one of my friends kept playing the single player and would encounter enemies on the main missions. He would express how the game was hard, resulting in him losing. I asked him, how did you go about preparing for these fights? He asked, what did you mean? And I was like, well, since he was early in the game, a very viable strategy is to put up a bunch of fences and then stab the enemies with a spear. This is a very important strategy until you get your first gun and then the bow and arrow. He said he didn't have any fences, and I said the game tries to teach you that you need to consider many variables and then to attempt those encounters while being as prepared as possible. So I was like, maybe try to go about those situations and remember that you have tools at your disposal and you should remember to use them and not go in half-cocked. I have noticed that as you consider the different meters you have to monitor while you're sick or not sick and what weapons and supplies you have available, that you'll most likely succeed if you are prepared. And this can be very rewarding and satisfying. This makes for an intense situation when the game throws you a curveball or say you forgot to resupply on something. Now you have this extra bit of intensity to the encounter. I find that the game does a great job at exploring areas, so exploring the dust area can be the most fun because it's essentially covered in this thick layer of fog and you don't know where you're going at first. There are many supply crates and additional weapons along with equipment recipes that you can find while you're exploring. I love trying to go about this place and seeing if I can find those places. Also, while you're in the dust, your objective marker won't show, and this plays into you having to explore the area. But what's neat with this is that, so say you go into dust, you go into an area you haven't been before in there. Essentially what the game is doing is tracking your journey location, what you're doing on this route. When you return back to base, it's as if you log back up your track, and then now those areas on the maps are now shown. So as you explore, you're continuously upgrading yourself and then getting that progression where you're like, oh, I can see more of the map because now I've charted it myself. And then when you go back and you go to those charted areas, the objective marker will show up. So it is a nice little system that it has going on there. I could see it being very annoying if it never actually did this, but I do like the aspect is that dust is this uncharted area, then you go into it and essentially chart the map, and that way it plays into your way of survival and really getting to know the area. So what's really neat, it's a nice little aspect of the dust area, is that while you're exploring, you then need to use your oxygen to be able to survive. But as you're going about the environment, you'll come into these areas that are surrounded by the dust, but they're these regular areas that you can go into. What's nice is they provide this great sense of reprieve because you go into them and you don't need to then worry about your oxygen levels again. You just have to worry about your other meters, and sometimes there's some useful animals and items that you can grab here while you're exploring. The last main thing I want to talk about are some of the stuff about some of the reviews that have been released for this game. I'm completely fine if you don't enjoy this game. Just be able to justify your reasons, but more importantly, have those reasons be fully developed. Many criticisms I see are really attacking the tutorial section of the game, and they kind of act like this is the whole experience. There was an individual who did some journalism and poked many holes into many of these criticisms that were presented by these major YouTubers. So I want to put some of his excerpts down here so you can kind of see some of his stuff that he did, and I thought it was pretty good and really interesting.
You're constantly walking around this huge empty map looking for food and water. Then when you finally find some, oh, you thought you could just eat it there? No, you gotta walk back to the base for that. I'm sick and tired of looking for food and water! In combat, it's not much better. You put fences down and you poke zombies. That's it. You put fences, you poke zombies, okay? Put up a stupid fence there, put up a damn wall there. That's freaking it!
This game isn't perfect, but it isn't the dumpster fire that it's being presented as. I find this game to be one of those games where as you progress further into the game, it gets more and more interesting. Thus, it's kind of a slow burn. Many of the annoyances presented by the critics, like gathering resources or not having much variety to the combat, they're not really true. You start out with having to gather everything, but after a few missions, you'll be able to gain the ability to create those resources back at base. The game gives a nice steady sense of progression with this. The combat is rather mundane for probably the first 2 missions or so because you really only have access to fences and spears. But quickly following this, as you go through the main missions, you'll get a bow, you'll get a gun, you'll get Molotov cocktails, mines, a shotgun, and the list goes on. The co-op provides a nice tower defense horde mode which nets you great rewards along with guns. In fact, I find the rewards so plentiful in co-op that I do have concerns of co-op actually breaking the single player game in terms of balancing. In the first few matches that I played in my co-op, I earned this really good bow that I was able to take back to my single player, and I was able to continually one-shot a lot of the enemies. I am taking my time as I enjoy really exploring these environments, and from what I've read, the game continually opens up as you play and even extends past the main story. Upon completion, you'll gain access to additional subclasses to further level up and improve your character. I plan on doing a proper review after I fully complete the game. I wanted to make this video as a means to show a different perspective on the game, show some of the areas that are actually pretty good, and then present some of that journalism that I saw before about where that guy was kind of poking holes into some of the critiques. Now let me know what you thought about this video, whether you like it, you dislike the game. Let's try and create a civil conversation down below. I don't think that's going to happen, but we can try. And I want to say thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, check out some of my other ones, and I'll see you next time.